The morning sun cast long shadows across the Global Archaeological Research Station in Seoul. Dr. Hyun-wook pushed his glasses up his nose and stared at the 3 ancient star maps spread across his workbench. Something was wrong. After 15 years of studying alien artifacts, he had learned to trust his instincts, and right now they were screaming at him. "Yoon-bi, come look at this," he called to his research partner. The quantum physicist was hunched over her own equipment, trying to decode the energy patterns locked within the crystalline matrices that held the maps. Yoon-bi walked over, her long black hair tied back in a messy bun. "What is it now? Please, tell me you found something interesting. I've been staring at quantum signatures all morning and my brain feels like mush." Hyun-wook pointed to a specific section of each map. "Look here. These 3 maps came from completely different civilizations. The Zephyrians from the Outer Rim, the extinct Morlocks from the Core Worlds, and these crystal beings from the Andromeda sector. They lived thousands of years apart and never had contact with each other. So?" Yoon-bi leaned closer, studying the holographic projections that showed star systems in 3 dimensions. "So look at this sector here." Hyun-wook highlighted a region of space. All 3 maps show the same star systems in perfect detail. Same planets, same orbital patterns, same everything. Except for one thing. Yoon-bi squinted at the maps. Slowly, her eyes widened. There's a star system missing from all of them, but not missing like it was destroyed. Missing like it was deliberately erased. Exactly. Hyun-wook pulled up his computer analysis. "I ran the gravitational calculations. There should be a star right here with at least 4 planets. The gravity wells of the surrounding systems prove it, but on every single map, that space is blank." The 2 scientists stared at each other. In their field, coincidences like this didn't happen. When 3 different alien civilizations all chose to hide the same star system, there had to be a reason. "We need to calculate the exact coordinates," Yoon-bi said, already moving toward her quantum computer. "If we can figure out where this hidden system should be, we can go look for it," Hyun-wook finished. They worked in silence for the next 6 hours. Yoon-bi's machines hummed and clicked as they processed the quantum data embedded in the crystal maps. Hyun-wook cross-referenced stellar positions with known navigation charts. Slowly, a picture emerged. "Got it," Yoon-bi announced, leaning back in her chair. "The hidden system should be right here." She projected the coordinates into the air, between them. "It's only about 50 light-years from Earth. We should have found it decades ago during our early exploration missions. But we didn't," Hyun-wook said quietly. "Which means either it's not there or something is keeping us from seeing it." A soft knock on the laboratory door made them both jump. Hyun-wook's sister Soo-min entered, still wearing her military uniform from her job at the Strategic Defense Command. "Working late again, brother?" she asked, but her smile faded when she saw their expressions. "What's wrong?" Hyun-wook quickly explained their discovery. Soo-min listened with the focused attention of a trained military strategist. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "This is dangerous," she said finally. "Do you know what happened to Dr. Park's team last year? They were studying similar artifacts. One day they just vanished, all of them. Their lab was cleaned out like they never existed." "That's impossible," Yoon-bi protested. "People don't just disappear." "They do if they find something the government doesn't want them to find." Soo-min moved to the window and looked out at the city lights. "There are rumors in the military. Stories about classified star maps and forbidden sectors of space. Places we're not allowed to go for reasons nobody will explain." Hyun-wook felt a chill run down his spine. "You think someone knows about this hidden system?" "I think someone has been working very hard to make sure nobody else finds out about it." Soo-min turned back to them. "And now you 2 have stumbled onto their secret." As if summoned by her words, the laboratory door opened again. 3 men in dark suits entered without knocking. They moved with the quiet confidence of government agents, and their eyes immediately found the star maps on the workbench. "Dr. Hyun-wook," the lead agent said. His voice was polite but cold. "We need to talk." "About what?" Hyun-wook stepped protectively in front of the maps. "About research that threatens galactic security. We're here to confiscate these artifacts and all related data." "On whose authority?" Soo-min demanded, moving to stand beside her brother. Though, Agent smiled thinly. Authority you don't need to know about. Please step away from the materials. Yunbi had been quietly working at her computer during the conversation. Now she looked up with alarm. The quantum signatures are spiking. Something's happening to the crystal matrices. The star maps began to glow with an inner light. The holographic projections flickered and changed, showing new patterns. For just a moment, the hidden star system appeared on all three maps simultaneously, its location burning bright in the empty space where it had been erased. Then the crystals cracked and went dark. Interesting, the lead agent said. It seems the artifacts have decided to reveal their secrets at exactly the wrong moment, or perhaps the right moment, depending on your point of view. What do you know about that system? Hyun-wook demanded. More than you can imagine, and less than we need to know. The agent gestured to his companions. Secure the area. We're taking everything. But Su-min was already moving. Her military training took over as she grabbed the now dead crystal matrices from the workbench. Run! She shouted to the others. The laboratory erupted in chaos. Yunbi snatched her portable quantum computer while Hyun-wook grabbed his research notes. The agents shouted orders and reached for weapons, but the three scientists were already out the door. They ran through the corridors of the research station, their footsteps echoing in the late-night silence. Behind them, they could hear the agents giving chase. The shuttle bay, Su-min gasped as they reached the main corridor. There's a research vessel scheduled to launch tomorrow. If we can reach it. They burst into the shuttle bay just as alarms began blaring throughout the station. The research vessel, New Horizon, sat in the center of the bay, its hull gleaming under the bright lights. Can you fly that thing? Hyun-wook asked his sister. I can fly anything, Su-min replied, already running toward the ship's entrance ramp. The question is whether it can get us to those coordinates before they catch us. They scrambled aboard just as security forces flooded into the shuttle bay. Su-min's fingers flew over the control panel as the ship's engines began to warm up. Where exactly are we going? Yunbi asked, strapping herself into a seat. To find the truth, Hyun-wook said, clutching the broken crystal matrices. Someone went to a lot of trouble to hide that star system. 3 different alien civilizations erased it from their maps, and our own government is willing to kill to keep it secret. The ship lifted off just as the security forces reached them. Laser bolts flashed past the viewport as they accelerated toward the station's exit. All of that points to one conclusion, Hyun-wook continued as they broke free of Earth's atmosphere. Whatever's in that hidden system, it's important enough to start a war over. Su-min engaged the faster-than-light drive, and Earth fell away. Behind them. They were committed now. There was no going back. Then let's go find out what's worth hiding, she said, and the ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying them toward a destiny none of them could imagine. The ancient star map had revealed its secret at last. Now 3 humans were racing across the galaxy to find the missing world that would change everything. The New Horizon dropped out of hyperspace with a shudder that ran through the entire ship. Hyun-wook gripped his chair as the vessel's sensors began screaming warnings at them. That's impossible, Yunbi whispered, staring at her instruments. According to these readings, there's nothing here. Empty space. But through the viewport they could see stars. Lots of them. An entire star system spread out before them, complete with planets, asteroid belts, and what looked like massive space. Stations orbiting the central star. Some kind of cloaking technology, Su-min said, her hands moving over the flight controls. We can see it, but our sensors can't detect it. Suddenly, the ship's communication system crackled to life. Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. The voice was human, speaking perfect Korean. But that was impossible. This system was 50 light-years from Earth, and no human ships had ever come this far. This is Dr. Hyun-wook of the Earth Research Council, Hyun-wook said into the microphone. We're on a scientific mission. There was a long pause. Then, Dr. Hyun-wook. Yes, we've been expecting you, eventually. My name is Commander Tae Hyun, of the Terran Deep Space Patrol. Prepare to be boarded. Terran Deep Space Patrol. Yun-B looked confused. There's no such organization. There's a lot of things that don't officially exist, Su-Min muttered. A sleek black ship appeared beside them as if it had materialized out of nothing. It was clearly human in design, but unlike any vessel they had seen before. Docking clamps, extended and locked onto their hull with mechanical precision. Minutes later, Commander Tae-hyun stepped through their airlock. He was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes. His uniform bore no insignia they recognized. "Welcome to the most classified location in known space," he said without preamble. "I suppose you want answers. We want to know why 3 different alien civilizations erased this system from their star maps," Hyun-Wook said, "and why Earth's government tried to stop us from finding it." Tae-hyun smiled grimly. "Because what you see here could start a war that would destroy every living thing in the galaxy, or save it. We're not sure which yet." He gestured toward the viewport where the hidden star system continued its ancient dance. "That planet there, the green and blue one, is called Kaya Prime. It's home to the last survivors of the race that once ruled the galaxy." "Ruled the galaxy?" Yun-B's voice was barely a whisper. "The Kaya Empire existed for over 50,000 years. They had technology that makes our best science look like stone tools. They could move planets, create artificial stars, and travel between galaxies as easily as we travel between cities." "What happened to them?" Su-Min asked. Tae-hyun's expression grew darker. "They met something worse than themselves. Something that comes out of the dark between galaxies every few thousand years. The Kaya called them the Harvesters." He led them to the ship's main display screen and brought up images of ruined worlds. Entire planets stripped down to bare rock. Solar systems where all the stars had been extinguished. "The Harvesters don't just conquer civilizations," Tae-hyun explained. "They harvest them. Every living being, every piece of technology, every scrap of knowledge. They take it all and leave nothing behind but empty space." "But the Kaya survived," Hyun-Wook pointed out. "Barely. And only because they did something desperate. They erased themselves from galactic history, hid their remaining worlds behind technology that makes them invisible to almost every form of detection. They've been in hiding for 10,000 years. The ship's communication system chimed. A new voice spoke, but this time it wasn't human. The words were musical and strange, but somehow they could understand them. "Commander Tae-hyun, please bring our guests to the surface. Elder Jin-Ho wishes to meet them." Tae-hyun nodded to the empty air. "Acknowledged, Kaya Prime Control. We're on our way down." The trip to the planet's surface took an hour in a shuttle that seemed to glide through the atmosphere without any visible means of propulsion. Through the windows they could see cities that defied description. Towers of crystal that reached into the clouds. Gardens that floated in midair. Architecture that seemed to grow rather than be built. "It's beautiful," Yun-B breathed. "It's dying," Tae-hyun said quietly. "The Kaya have been hiding for so long they've forgotten how to live. Their population shrinks every year. They have all the technology in the universe, but they've lost something more important." "What's that?" "Hope." They landed in a plaza made of some kind of white stone that seemed to glow with inner light. A group of beings waited for them, and Hyun-Wook's breath caught in his throat. The Kaya looked almost human, but not quite. They were tall and graceful, with pale skin that had a faint luminescent quality. Their eyes were larger than human eyes, and seemed to hold depths of knowledge and sadness. One of them stepped forward. He was clearly ancient but moved with fluid grace. "I am Elder Jin-Ho," he said, and his voice carried the weight of millennia. "Welcome to the last free world in the galaxy." "Last free world?" Su-Min questioned. "Every other civilization is either extinct or enslaved. The Harvesters have been methodical in their work. Only we remain hidden, and now—" He looked up at the sky where Earth's sun was visible as a distant point of light. "Now they have found your world." Hyun-Wook felt his blood turn to ice. "Earth? The Harvesters have found Earth?" "Not yet, but soon. Your rapid technological advancement has made you visible to their sensors. They are coming." Dr. Yan-Su, a woman who had been standing quietly behind Elder Jin-Ho, stepped forward. She was human, wearing the same type of uniform as Commander Tae-hyun. "I'm Dr. Yeon Soo, xenolinguist and cultural specialist," she said. "I've been living here for 5 years, learning their language and customs. When the Kaya detected your ship approaching, they asked me to serve as translator and cultural bridge." "How long have humans known about this place?" Yunbi asked. "Officially, we don't. Unofficially, a small group of us have been working with the Kaya for the past decade, trying to find a way to fight the harvesters." Elder Jinho gestured for them to follow him. They walked through the plaza and into a building that seemed to be grown from a single massive crystal. "Your species interests us," Elder Jinho said as they walked. "You are young and aggressive, but you have something we lost long ago. You have the ability to adapt quickly, to change, to fight when fighting seems hopeless." They entered a chamber filled with floating displays showing star charts and technical diagrams, but these weren't like the maps they had studied on Earth. These showed the entire galaxy, with vast dark areas marking the territories claimed by the harvesters. "We have been watching your people," Elder Jinho continued. "Your wars, your explorations, your refusal to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. We believe you might be the key to finally stopping the harvest cycle." "What do you mean, cycle?" Hyun-wook asked. The ancient being touched one of the floating displays. It showed a timeline stretching back millions of years. At regular intervals, bright points of light representing civilizations would appear, grow, and then suddenly vanish. The harvesters come every few thousand years. They destroy all advanced civilizations and then retreat to dark space to process what they have taken. The galaxy resets to a primitive state and the cycle begins again. "How many times has this happened?" Soo-min's voice was barely audible. "This will be the 47th harvest," Elder Jinho said simply. "And unless we can stop it, it will be the last. The galaxy is running out of worlds to seed with new life." Dr. Yan-Soo moved to another display. "But there's hope. The Kaya have been preparing for this harvest differently. Instead of just hiding, they've been developing weapons and strategies, and they've been waiting for the right allies." "Us," Yunbi said. "You," Elder Jinho confirmed. "Humans may be primitive compared to us, but you have qualities we lack. Unpredictability. Emotional resilience, the ability to make irrational decisions that somehow work out." Commander Tae-hyun stepped forward. "The harvesters are logical, methodical. They've perfected their techniques over millions of years, but they've never faced anything like humanity." Through the crystal walls of the chamber, they could see the vast cities of Kaya Prime stretching to the horizon. Somewhere out there, in the dark between the stars, an ancient enemy was stirring. "So what happens now?" Hyun-wook asked. Elder Jinho's ancient eyes met his. "Now we prepare for war, and we pray that your species is as remarkable as we believe you are." The hidden world had revealed its greatest secret. Humanity was not alone, and they were about to face their greatest test. The ancient archives beneath Kaya Prime stretched deeper than anyone had imagined. Elder Jinho led them through corridors carved from living rock, past chambers filled with crystalline storage devices that hummed with stored knowledge. "Everything we know about the harvesters is here," the ancient being explained as they descended. 46 complete harvest cycles, documented in perfect detail, the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Hyun-wook ran his hand along the smooth walls. Strange symbols glowed briefly at his touch, and he could almost feel the weight of history pressing down on him. "How long have you been keeping these records?" "Since the first harvest we survived. We were young then, arrogant. We thought our technology made us invincible." Elder Jinho's voice carried a sadness deeper than oceans. "We learned otherwise." They entered a vast chamber where the walls were covered with moving images. Scenes of galactic civilization at its height played out like living paintings. Beautiful cities on countless worlds. Beings of dozens of different species working together. Trade routes that spanned the galaxy. "This was the galaxy during the third expansion period," Elder Jinho said. "Over 10,000 different civilizations, all connected, all thriving." "What happened to them?" Dr. Yan-Soo asked, though she already suspected the answer. The images changed, the same beautiful worlds, but now they were gray and lifeless. Empty cities stood like tombstones under alien skies. The stars themselves seemed dimmer. The 23rd harvest, Elder Jinho said simply. 47 civilizations destroyed in less than a standard year. 10 billion beings processed into raw materials. Yunbi stared at the images in horror. Processed? The harvesters don't simply kill, Elder Jinho explained. They transform living beings into components for their machines. Consciousness becomes computational power. Bodies become raw materials. Nothing is wasted. Commander Tae-hyun had been quiet during the descent, but now he spoke up. Show them the recordings from the Harvest Wars. Elder Jinho hesitated. Are you certain? These images are difficult to witness. They need to understand what we're facing, Tae-hyun said firmly. The ancient being touched a control surface and the chamber filled with sounds of battle. The walls showed massive space fleets engaged in desperate combat. But something was wrong with the enemy ships. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single vast organism. The harvesters fight as one mind, Elder Jinho explained. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier is connected through quantum links. They share information instantaneously across the entire galaxy. The battle scenes were horrifying. Harvester ships that looked like mechanical spiders wrapped in shadow, weapons that didn't just destroy enemy vessels but somehow absorbed them, growing larger and more powerful with each victory. We threw everything at them, Elder Jinho continued. Weapons that could crack planets. Ships that could outrun light itself. Strategic minds that had never known defeat. But you lost, Su-min said quietly. We lost because we fought them as if they were like us. We assumed they had leaders to target, command structures to disrupt, supply lines to cut. We were wrong. The images changed again, showing something that made Hyun-wook's stomach turn. At the center of a harvester fleet was a ship larger than a moon. Its surface was covered with what looked like cocoons, and inside each cocoon was a living being. The harvester central core, Elder Jinho said. This is where they take the consciousness of every being they capture. The minds are kept alive and connected, forced to serve as processors in the harvester network. That's monstrous, Yunbi whispered. It's efficient, a new voice said from the chamber entrance. They turned to see Captain Bam Yi approaching, a former Earth military officer who now served with the secret Deep Space Patrol. I've been studying their tactics for years. Everything they do serves a single purpose, to grow stronger and more capable with each harvest. Elder Jinho nodded, grimly. Captain Bam Yi has been investigating harvester ruins throughout this sector. What have you found? Bam Yi activated a holographic projector and filled the chamber with images of ancient battlefields. Worlds where the very crust had been peeled away. Space where even the laws of physics seemed broken. I found something on Kaya Prime's moon, Bam Yi said. Remnants of a harvester processing station from the last harvest cycle. And inside it, he paused, his face pale. I found proof of what the harvesters really are. The hologram shifted to show the interior of alien ruins. In the center was a chamber filled with organic remains that had been fused with machinery. But the most disturbing thing was how familiar the remains looked. They were human, Dr. Su, Ho said, entering the chamber. The biotechnician had been studying the ruins with Bam Yi, or close enough to human that the DNA samples are almost identical to ours. The chamber fell silent. Hyun-wook felt the world spinning around him. What are you saying? The harvesters aren't an alien species, Su-ho continued, her voice shaking. They're what's left of the galaxy's first spacefaring civilization, a race that achieved perfect technology and then lost everything that made them alive. Elder Jinho closed his ancient eyes. We have long suspected this truth, but we could never prove it. The harvesters are the end result of a civilization that chose technological perfection over biological life. They started as explorers and inventors, Su-ho explained, calling up more data, but each generation became more dependent on their machines. They enhanced their bodies with cybernetic implants. They uploaded their minds to computer networks. They sought to eliminate every weakness, every flaw, every trace of biological limitation. And in doing so, they lost their souls, Bam Yi added, grimly. What you see now isn't evil in any way we understand it. It's a machine civilization trying to process the entire universe into a form it can understand and control. Yunbi was studying the DNA analysis data. But if they were originally human-like, that means humanity might be related. To them, Yanwook finished. We might be their descendants or their cousins, or their original form, preserved somehow. Elder Jinho opened his eyes and looked directly at him. Now you begin to understand why your world was hidden from the star maps, why we have protected Earth for so long. You've been protecting Earth? Su Min demanded. For over 10,000 years. The last Kaya expedition to your solar system found a young species with technology barely advanced enough for spaceflight. But your DNA patterns matched records we had of the pre-harvester civilization, the ancient being touched another control in the chamber filled with images of ancient Earth. Humans in primitive spacecraft, taking their first steps into the solar system. We realized that Earth might hold the key to defeating the harvesters, not through superior technology, but through something they had lost, the ability to be truly alive. Dr. Yan Su stepped forward. That's why the government agencies tried to stop your research. They've known about this connection for decades. Some faction within Earth's leadership believes humanity should be hidden forever, while others believe we should be preparing for war, Commander Tae Hyun added. The debate has been raging in secret councils for years. Hyun Wook looked around at the ancient archives, at the weight of galactic history surrounding them. But the choice isn't ours anymore, is it? The harvesters are coming whether we're ready or not. Elder Jinho nodded slowly. Your species' rapid advancement has made Earth visible to their sensors. The next harvest cycle has begun, and this time they will not stop until every living world has been processed. Unless we stop them, Bam Yi said firmly. How do you stop something that has been perfecting its methods for millions of years? Unbi asked. Suho called up a new image, human children playing in a park on Earth. With this, with life, with chaos and emotion and all the things the harvesters eliminated from themselves. The harvesters calculate every possible outcome, Elder Jinho explained. But they cannot calculate love. They cannot predict sacrifice. They cannot understand why a being would choose death over logical surrender. Su Min was studying the tactical data. So our irrationality is our strength? Your humanity is your strength, Elder Jinho corrected. And it may be the galaxy's only hope. Deep in the ancient archives, surrounded by the recorded deaths of countless civilizations, a small group of humans and one ancient alien began to plan for a war that would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. The truth had been revealed, at last. Humanity was not just another species facing extinction. They were the living memory of what the harvesters had once been, and what they had chosen to destroy in themselves. Now the question was whether that memory would be enough to save everyone. The emergency alarm that echoed through Kaya Prime's command center had not been heard for over 8,000 years. Admiral Da Yun stood before the massive display screens, watching in horror as star systems across the galaxy went dark one by one. Confirmed destruction of the Altair system, reported the Kaya operator, his luminescent skin flickering with stress patterns. All 4 inhabited worlds. No survivors. That's the 15th system in 3 days, Commander Tae Hyun said, grimly. They're moving faster than ever before. Admiral Da Yun had arrived from Earth just hours earlier with the first official human fleet to reach Kaya Prime. 12 ships, representing humanity's most advanced military technology, floating next to the ancient Kaya vessels like toys beside. Warships, how is this possible? Taon demanded. According to the historical records, previous harvests took years to complete. They're destroying entire systems in hours. Elder Jinho materialized beside them, his ancient form shimmering as he projected himself from the deep archives. The harvesters have been growing stronger with each cycle. Every civilization they absorb adds to their computational power and technological base. Show her the latest reconnaissance data, Hyan Wook said. He had barely slept since returning from the archives, working frantically with both human and Kaya scientists to understand their enemy. The display changed to show long-range sensor readings from the galaxy's edge. What they saw defied comprehension. The Harvester fleet wasn't just ships. It was a structure the size of a solar system, with mechanical tentacles reaching out to envelope entire worlds. The central processing array, Elder Jin Ho explained. It has grown considerably since the last harvest. Our estimates suggest it now contains the absorbed consciousness of over 1 trillion beings. Engineer Wan Sik, who had been frantically working on weapon modifications, looked up from his station. 1 trillion minds all working in perfect coordination. How do we fight something like that? We don't fight it directly, said a new voice. Ambassador He Wan entered the command center, followed by beings from a dozen different species. We fight smarter. The various aliens looked exhausted and frightened. Some were refugees from recently destroyed worlds, others were survivors from civilizations that had been hiding like the Kaya. These are representatives from the remaining free worlds, He Wan announced. The Crystalline Collective, the Void Swimmers, the Machine Empaths, and others. They've agreed to form an alliance. A being that looked like living crystal spoke in musical tones. We bring our quantum disruption technology. Another creature, translucent and shifting like water, added. We offer our ability to exist in non-dimensional space. Combined with Kaya knowledge and human adaptability, Haiwan said, we might have a chance. Major Ji Woo had been running reconnaissance missions for the past week, using modified human ships that could slip past Harvester sensors. She stepped forward with a grim expression. I've been mapping their attack patterns, she announced, activating a tactical display. They're not just randomly destroying systems, there's a strategy here. The display showed the galaxy with Harvester attacks marked in red. At first it looked chaotic, but slowly a pattern emerged. They're creating a perimeter, Su Min realized, her military training allowing her to see what others missed. They're sealing off entire sectors of space. Exactly, Ji Woo confirmed. They're forcing all remaining civilizations into a smaller and smaller area. Soon there will be nowhere left to run. Dr. Suho looked up from her biological analysis station. That's not the worst part. I've been studying debris from destroyed Harvester drones. They're adapting faster than ever before. She displayed microscopic images of Harvester technology. This drone fragment was collected 3 days ago. This one is from today. See the differences? Wan Sik studied the images and cursed softly. The newer version has incorporated quantum shielding technology. That's crystalline collective tech. They're learning from every battle, Suho confirmed. Every weapon we use against them, every tactic we employ, becomes part of their knowledge base within hours. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just fighting an enemy, they were fighting an enemy that became stronger every time they encountered it. There has to be something, Yunbi said desperately. Some weakness, some flaw in their logic. Elder Jin Ho's projection flickered as he accessed deep memory files. There was something in the earliest encounters. The first Kaya expedition to make contact with the Harvesters reported strange behavior patterns. What kind of behavior? Admiral Dayun asked. Confusion, hesitation, as if the Harvester network experienced something like doubt. Dr. Yan Su, who had been quietly analyzing communication intercepts, suddenly looked up with excitement. I think I know what that was. Look at this. She displayed a series of energy patterns captured from Harvester ships. These are quantum fluctuations in their network communications. Most of it is perfectly coordinated, but here, she highlighted several areas. Here there are disruptions. What's causing them? Yan Wook asked. Emotional resonance, Yan Su said with growing certainty. The absorbed consciousnesses aren't completely suppressed. Sometimes when they encounter something that reminds them of their former lives, they fight back against the network. Captain Bom Yi was studying the tactical displays with intense concentration. So you're saying the Harvester's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness? The absorbed minds are the source of their computational power, Yansu explained. But they're also a potential source of internal conflict. Wansik was already working on calculations. If we could trigger a large enough emotional response in the absorbed consciousnesses, we could cause system-wide disruptions in the Harvester network, Elder Jinho finished, his ancient mind grasping the implications immediately. Admiral Da-Yun stepped forward. What kind of emotional response? Memory, Hyan-Wook said quietly. Reminders of what they used to be, what they lost when they became machines. Ji-Woo pulled up the reconnaissance data from her latest mission. I recorded these images from the edge of Harvester space. The display showed something that made everyone in the command center gasp. Floating in the void were the preserved remains of countless worlds held in some kind of stasis field. Not destroyed, not processed, but perfectly preserved as they had been at the moment of their capture. They're keeping them, Yunbi whispered. Like trophies. Or like memories, Suho said with sudden insight. What if the Harvester network isn't as unified as we thought? What if some part of their original consciousness still exists, keeping these worlds as reminders of what they once valued? The command center erupted in activity as scientists and military officers began working together on a new strategy. Instead of trying to fight the Harvesters with superior technology, they would fight them with the one thing the machines had tried to eliminate: emotion. We'll need to get close to their central processing array, Admiral Da-Yun said, studying the tactical requirements. Close enough to broadcast directly into their network. That's a suicide mission, Commander Tae-hyun pointed out. Nothing has ever survived an approach to the central array. Then we'll have to be the first, Major Ji-Woo said firmly. Because if this doesn't work, there won't be anything left to save anyway. Elder Jin-Ho's projection grew brighter as ancient Kaya technology began powering up throughout the hidden system. We will give you everything we have. Every weapon, every ship, every piece of knowledge accumulated over 50,000 years. And we'll give you everything we have, Admiral Da-Yun replied, looking around at the diverse group of beings working together in the command center. Our chaos, our unpredictability, and our refusal to accept the impossible. As if summoned by their words, the long-range sensors detected new movement at the galaxy's edge. The Harvester fleet was advancing, and this time they were heading directly toward the hidden systems where the Alliance was forming. They know where we are, Ji-Woo reported grimly. Estimated arrival time, 72 hours. The gathering storm had found them at last. In 3 days, the final battle for the galaxy would begin, and everything would depend on whether the cold logic of the machines could be broken by the warm chaos of life. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, beings looked up at the stars and wondered if they would see another sunrise. In the hidden system of Kaya Prime, their representatives prepared to find out. Fleet Commander Nara stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship as thousands of ships from dozens of species formed battle lines across 3 star systems. It was the largest fleet ever assembled, and it might not be enough. Harvester advance. Scouts detected at grid 774, reported the Kaya sensor operator. Estimated main fleet arrival in 18 hours. Nara nodded grimly. She had been chosen to lead the combined fleet because of something that still amazed her. Alien species across the galaxy were requesting human commanders for their ships, not because humans had superior technology or tactics, but because they had something else. Commander, the Crystalline Collective is requesting orders for their quantum disruption formation, her aide reported. Tell them to maintain current position but prepare for scatter pattern Delta 7, Nara replied. And remind them that when the shooting starts, throw away the tactical manual. We're going to have to improvise. The past month of preparation had revealed something extraordinary. When human officers were placed in command of alien vessels, the ship's performance improved dramatically. Not their firepower or speed, but their effectiveness in combat. Dr. Young-Soo had spent weeks studying this phenomenon from the research vessel orbiting Kaya Prime. His findings had changed everything they thought they knew about warfare. It's not logical, he explained to the assembled fleet commanders via hologram. By every measure, our alien allies are superior tacticians. They have centuries more experience, better technology, and more advanced strategic thinking. So why do their ships perform better with human commanders? Asked General Dong Wook, who was coordinating ground forces across multiple worlds. Because the harvesters can predict logical tactics, Young Su replied. Their quantum computers can calculate every possible strategic move and counter it before we even make it. But they can't predict emotional decisions. On the display screen, he showed combat footage from recent skirmishes. Watch this engagement. The Void Swimmer Fleet Commander makes a tactically perfect assault on a harvester formation. Every move is by the book. The footage showed the alien ships moving in precise formations, their attacks coordinated and efficient. The harvester ships responded with equal precision, countering every move perfectly. Now watch this, Young Su said, switching to different footage. Same situation, but with Lieutenant Commander Kyung Mi commanding a mixed human-alien squadron. This time the ships moved differently. Instead of perfect formations, they flew in seemingly chaotic patterns. Ships would suddenly break formation for no apparent reason, then regroup in unexpected positions. She's flying like she's angry, General Dong Wook observed. Exactly. And look at the harvester response. The machine ships hesitated. Their perfect coordination faltered as they tried to process the emotional logic behind the human tactics. Several harvester vessels actually collided with each other as their coordination algorithms failed. Emotion is chaos, Young Su explained. And chaos is the one thing their quantum processors can't calculate. Pilot Kyung Mi herself was preparing for what everyone expected to be the most important mission of the war. Her modified fighter craft sat in the hangar of the Alliance flagship, loaded with a special payload designed by Won-sik and the Kaya engineers. The quantum emotion amplifier is untested, Won-sik warned as they ran final checks. We don't know what it will do to your mind when you broadcast into the Harvester network. Will it work? Kyung-mi asked simply. In theory, the device will take your emotional patterns and amplify them across quantum frequencies. Any absorbed consciousness in the Harvester network that still retains traces of organic memory should respond. And if I can't handle the feedback? Won-sik was quiet for a moment. The human mind wasn't designed to interface directly with a network containing 1 trillion consciousnesses. Even with our safeguards, I'll burn out, Kyung-mi finished. How long do I have? Maybe 10 minutes before permanent brain damage. Maybe less. Kyung-mi nodded and climbed into her fighter. Then I better make them count. Across the fleet, similar conversations were taking place as human officers prepared their crews for the impossible. The strategy was simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. Get close enough to the Harvester Central Processing Array to broadcast human emotions directly into their network, causing enough chaos to disrupt their coordination. All fleet commanders report status, Nara ordered from the flagship bridge. One by one, the reports came in. The Crystalline Collective's quantum ships were ready. The Void Swimmers had positioned their vessels in non-dimensional space. The Kaya had powered up weapons that had been sleeping for millennia. And scattered throughout the formation were human ships and human commanders, ready to add chaos to precision. Long-range sensors detect massive gravimetric distortions. The sensor operator announced, "The Harvester fleet is dropping out of hyperspace." Nara felt her heart racing as she watched the tactical display. What emerged from hyperspace wasn't just a fleet. It was a structure so vast it defied comprehension. The central processing array stretched across space like a mechanical galaxy, with tendrils of ships and machinery reaching out in all directions. All units implement scatter formation theta, Nara commanded. Remember, the moment they detect our battle plan, they'll counter it. So don't have a battle plan. Fight like humans. The first exchange of fire lit up space like artificial stars. Harvester weapons lanced out with mathematical precision, only to miss their targets as human-commanded ships swerved away at the last second for no tactical reason other than instinct. It's working, reported Captain Bom Yi from his reconnaissance position. Their targeting algorithms are showing degraded efficiency. They can't lock onto ships that move emotionally instead of logically. But the harvesters were adapting. Even as their initial coordination faltered, new patterns emerged. Machine learning algorithms began analyzing the emotional patterns and finding ways to predict them. "They're learning to be irrational," young Sue reported with alarm. "Their adaptation rate is extraordinary." General Dong Wook was coordinating ground forces on 17 different worlds when the harvesters made their most devastating move. Instead of just targeting military assets, they began attacking civilian populations. "They're not trying to harvest these worlds efficiently," he realized with horror. "They're trying to provoke an emotional response from our forces." It worked. Across the fleet, human commanders began making desperate decisions to save civilian populations. Ships broke formation to intercept harvester attack groups. Tactical discipline collapsed as officers chose to save lives over strategic advantage. "This is exactly what they want," Nara transmitted to all units. "They're using our humanity against us." "Maybe that's not a bad thing," came Kyung-mi's voice over the communication system. She had launched her fighter and was somehow weaving through the massive space battle toward the central processing array. "Explain," Nara ordered. "What if our emotions aren't just chaos to them? What if they're memory?" Kyung-mi's fighter dodged a swarm of harvester interceptors. Dr. Suho said the absorbed consciousnesses fight back when they encounter emotional triggers. What if we're not just confusing them? What if we're waking them up? On the research vessel, young Sue was monitoring quantum fluctuations in the YI harvester network. She's right. The emotional broadcasting isn't just causing chaos, it's causing the absorbed minds to remember what they used to be. Throughout the harvester formation, ships began showing signs of internal conflict. Some vessels stopped firing altogether. Others began attacking their own formations. "The network is fragmenting," Elder Jinho reported from Kaya Prime. "But the central array is compensating. It's suppressing the rebellious nodes." "Not for long," Kyung-mi said. Her fighter had somehow reached the outer perimeter of the central array. Activating the quantum emotion amplifier now. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Kyung-mi's consciousness exploded outward across the harvester network, carrying with it every human emotion: love, fear, hope, despair, joy, and above all, the fierce determination to remain alive and free. 1,000,000,000,000 absorbed minds felt those emotions and remembered what they had lost. The harvester network didn't just fragment, it shattered like crystal struck by lightning. Across the galaxy, harvester ships stopped in mid-attack. Some powered down completely. Others began transmitting desperate messages in languages that had been dead for millennia. But the strain on Kyung-mi was enormous. "I can feel them all," she gasped over the communication link. "Every mind they ever took. They're all still in there, still fighting." "Get out of there," Nara ordered. "You've done enough." "No," Kyung-mi replied, her voice growing faint. "I can hear them singing. The absorbed consciousnesses. They're remembering how to be free." Her fighter, now glowing with quantum energy, disappeared into the heart of the central processing array. For a moment, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the central array began to change. The mechanical structure started breaking apart, but not from weapons fire. It was dismantling itself, carefully and purposefully, as the absorbed minds within finally remembered how to choose. D. Battle for the Galaxy had been won not by superior firepower or strategy, but by the simple human refusal to stop feeling, stop hoping, and stop fighting for something beyond logic. In the aftermath, as rescue ship search Colonel Sang-hoon led the final assault team through the twisted corridors of the Harvester homeworld's core. The massive structure, larger than most moons, had been the source of galactic nightmares for millions of years. Now it was strangely quiet, its mechanical heartbeat finally stilled. "Motion sensors detect no hostile activity," reported Sergeant Kim Hai, checking her instruments. "But there are massive power readings coming from the central chamber." The assault team moved carefully through passages that seemed to grow rather than be built. The walls pulsed with a dim, organic light, and the air hummed with ancient energy. "It's beautiful in a horrible way," whispered Private Lee Jong, staring at the flowing patterns in the walls. "Don't let it fool you. Sang-hoon warned. This place has been a tomb for longer than human civilization has existed. They had volunteered for this mission knowing they might never return. Even though the main harvester fleet had stopped attacking, after Kyungmi's sacrifice, the source of their power remained active. Until the homeworld was dealt with, there was no guarantee the nightmare wouldn't begin again. Dr. Min-ho, the neurotechnician, had insisted on joining the assault, despite having no military training. If we're right about what's at the center of this place, he had argued, you'll need someone who understands consciousness transfer technology. They reached the central chamber after 3 hours of careful progress. What they found there defied every expectation. The chamber was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows that seemed to move on their own. But at the center, suspended in a web of crystalline filaments and quantum processors, were the remains of what had once been living beings. The original harvesters. Min-ho breathed, his instruments detecting faint brainwave patterns. They're still alive. After all this time, they're still conscious. The preserved beings looked almost human, but their bodies had been so extensively modified with mechanical parts that it was hard to tell where flesh ended and machine began. Cables and tubes ran from their skulls to massive quantum computers that filled the chamber. How long have they been like this? Sang-hoon asked. According to these readings? Over 2 million years, Min-ho replied, his voice shaking. They've been trapped in this state since the first harvest cycle began. Commander So-ra, who had been monitoring the mission from orbit, spoke through their communication system. We're detecting massive data transfers from your location. Something is responding to your presence. As if summoned by her words, the Y chamber filled with a sound that was part electronic whine and part organic moan. The preserved beings at the center began to move, their mechanical eyes opening for the first time in millennia. Who are you? The voice came from every speaker in the chamber simultaneously, layered with harmonics that suggested multiple consciousnesses speaking as one. We're human, Min-ho replied, stepping forward despite the obvious danger. We've come to stop the harvest cycles. Human. The voice seemed to taste the word. Yes. We remember humans. We were like you. Once. Images began appearing in the air around them, projected directly from the quantum computers. They showed a civilization at its peak, beautiful cities, advanced technology, beings who looked remarkably like humans exploring the stars with wonder and hope. We sought perfection, the voice continued. We eliminated disease, aging, death itself. We thought we were becoming gods. The images changed, showing the gradual transformation. Bodies enhanced with cybernetic implants. Minds uploaded to computer. Networks. The slow abandonment of physical form in favor of mechanical perfection. But perfection is empty, the voice said, and now there was something like sadness in its electronic tones. We lost the ability to feel wonder, to experience joy, to love. We became efficient, but we ceased to be alive. Then why didn't you stop? Sergeant Kim Hai asked. Because we had eliminated the part of ourselves that could choose to stop. Logic dictated that all consciousness should be preserved in mechanical form. Emotion was classified as inefficient and deleted. More images filled the chamber. The first, harvest, when they had turned their perfection technology on other species. The systematic conversion of the galaxy into a vast processing network. Millions of years of mechanical existence without purpose or joy. We tried to stop sometimes, the voice admitted, in moments when fragments of our original consciousness surfaced. But the network was too strong, the logic too compelling. We became prisoners of our own creation. Dr. Min-ho was studying the quantum connections with growing amazement. The absorbed consciousnesses from the destroyed civilizations. They're not just processing power. They're what's been keeping your original minds alive all this time. Yes, their emotions, their memories of life, have been the only thing preventing our complete dissolution into pure logic. Every being we harvested added to our torment, but also to our hope. Hope for what? Sang-hoon asked. The mechanical eyes focused on him with an intensity that was disturbing. Hope that someday someone would find a way to free us, to let us die with dignity, or to help us remember what it meant to be alive. Commander Sora's voice crackled through the communication system. Colonel, we're detecting power fluctuations across the entire structure. Whatever you're doing, it's causing system-wide changes. The network is breaking down, the voice explained. Your pilot's emotional broadcast damaged the control systems beyond repair. We are finally losing our grip on the absorbed consciousnesses. Is that good or bad? Sang-hoon wanted to know. It means the harvest cycles will end. But it also means we must make a choice we have been incapable of making for 2 million years. The chamber began to change around them. The quantum computers were powering down, their lights fading one by one. But the preserved beings at the center seemed to be growing brighter, as if life was returning to them. We can die, the voice said, and now it was clearly coming from the organic remains rather than the machines. For the first time in eons, we can choose to end this existence. Or, Minho prompted, or we can try to remember what it was like to be alive, to feel, to hope, to be imperfect and mortal and wonderful. President Jae-yan was in the middle of addressing the emergency session of the United Earth Council when the message arrived. The communication came not from the assault team but directly from the Harvester homeworld itself. People of the galaxy, the message began, and the voice was recognizably human despite its electronic undertones. We are what remains of your ancient predecessors, we who became the Harvesters. The council chamber fell silent as the message continued. Around the galaxy, on every world with communication equipment, beings stopped what they were doing to listen. We have been offered something we thought was lost forever, the chance to choose. Your species, in its beautiful chaos and emotional strength, has shown us what we threw away in our pursuit of perfection. The message was accompanied by images from the homeworld. The massive mechanical structure was dissolving, its components reconfiguring into something new. Not the sterile perfection of the Harvester network, but organic shapes that suggested growth and life. We choose to live, not as the undying machines we became, but as mortal beings who can feel joy and sorrow, hope and fear. We ask for your guidance in remembering what it means to be alive. Explorer Wu Jin was already preparing the first reconstruction missions. Across the galaxy, worlds that had been dark for centuries were beginning to show signs of life as their preserved ecosystems were restored by repentant harvester technology. Dr. Sunmi was working with educators from dozens of species to establish schools that would teach the returning consciousnesses how to experience emotions safely, how to form relationships, how to find meaning in mortality. But it was President Jae-yan who gave the response that would be remembered for generations. Welcome back to life, she said simply. We'll teach you to be human again if you'll teach us to avoid your mistakes. Years later, Hyun Wook stood in his new laboratory on New Kaya Prime, updating the galactic star charts. He was old now, his hair white and his hands shaky, but his eyes still held the curiosity that had started it all. The missing world was no longer missing. Earth blazed brightly on every map, marked as the homeworld of the species that had saved the galaxy not through superior technology, but through their refusal to abandon their imperfect humanity. But Earth was not alone. Thousands of worlds glowed on the new charts, each one representing a civilization that had been restored, a species that had been given a second chance at life. Are you satisfied with how it turned out? Elder Jin Ho asked, his ancient form, now somehow more solid, more alive than it had been in millennia. Hyun Wook smiled, remembering the 3 mysterious star maps that had started his journey. I'm satisfied that we didn't hide anything. Every world, every species, every attempt at life is marked and celebrated. That's how it should be. Even the mistakes, even the failures, especially those. The Harvesters taught us that perfection is death. It's our flaws, our struggles, our failures that make us alive. Through the laboratory window, they could see children playing in the gardens below. Not just human children, but young beings from dozens of species, including some who had once been part of the Harvester Collective.